Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Vintage Super League. It's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and I'm joined by Rich Shea. What's up, Rich?
Hey, Saffron, Mr. Olive, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, even after that beatdown I took in that last round. But doing well. How about
Yeah,
you?
I'm doing great. I won my match, was listening to some Queen to psych myself up, drinking some seltzer, and I love everything your deck is doing. Now, I haven't played the deck in Vintage, but I've played the deck in Legacy, and it's just a really fun deck.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite decks. I play it in Modern a lot. I played in Legacy a little bit. I wanted to try to build it last round of the Super League for the first round, and I kept getting stuck on the Moxen were the big issue. There's a little bit more challenges, I think, in Vintage than in Legacy or Modern because you have the Moxen adding mana and you have this restricted list where you can't play for Chalice of the Void. So there's some
Hmm.
challenges, but the deck can still be really powerful when it gets the right draws and the right matchups.
I like it. It looks like it's so dependent on the starting hand. Have you thought about what the trip to London might do to the deck?
I think it would improve it quite a bit if that
Yeah,
Mulligan rule came into play.
I think so too. It seems like the sort of deck that would benefit from it, possibly pretty significantly.
Yeah, the deck, it really, and that's kind of the tough balancing act with the deck is you really want a specific opening hand, preferably like a soul land and a blood moon and maybe one
Yeah,
extra mana source and life is good. But then you also have these games, if you're too greedy with your mulligans, you just end up with like three cards and do nothing. So there's a tough balancing act with the mulligans for sure.
exactly. And unlike a workshop decks mulligan pretty aggressively too, but you don't have Mishra to come in magically fix your mulligan. Sometimes you mull to four, but it doesn't matter because you have Eternal Infernosphere. And
Right.
you have some soul lands, but not, I guess, a tri land.
Yeah, not quite as powerful. Two mana, not quite as good as three. Speaking of decks, though, your deck looked very impressive in round one. That was just a dominating match for you.
Well, I had some fantastic draws. Variant was my good friend there. And historically, Xerox decks or photocopy decks, as it were, tend to do pretty well against Oath. The idea is that um, if you get rid of everything except mostly some cantrips in your deck, then you have fewer clunky cards, fewer bricks, so your draws will be much smoother. So the whole idea behind what I'm playing and what Steve's playing is to just not try to win. No, 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 none of that. And just try to draw some cards and maybe accidentally win. And both Young Pyromancer and Monastery Mentor, if you draw enough cards, you'll accidentally win. At some point, there has to be a build involving Laboratory Maniac and just all the rest of these cantrips.
Yeah, I think the last match was a good example of that. I think maybe I got 12 cards deep in my deck or something, and he was 35, something like that.
Right.
So you can see the power of just all the cantrips and the card draw and the tutors. So yeah, it looked good. So is Oath usually a bad matchup for you then?
No, Oath is usually a pretty good matchup against all of the cantrip heavy decks. The idea is that Oath can have these just amazing draws. It can burst out of the gates with land, with Orchard, Mox, Oath, and it can just shoehei people. But at the same time, it also sometimes you draw a Gristlebrand, and if you're Brian Kelly, sometimes you draw that 7 mana red and white angel. I don't know. So
Hmm.
it's it's uh it's a higher variance deck. The real reason to play Oath, I think, is if you expect someone to be coming with a Mishra's Workshop deck. Because as powerful as Foundry Inspector and his buddy Arcbound Ravager, who's an honorary ATOG, might be, they don't really stack up against Bristlebrand very well. So I think, I was looking at the list and I was thinking, man, I'm so glad that I did not decide to be a workshop wizard tonight.
Yeah, do you think Matt was expecting you to be playing shops? Do you think that played into his deck choice at all?
Um, it may well have been a factor because, historically, that's what I played the last two Eternal Weekends, and I really think that Workshops is probably the best deck overall in the format, but it's also a deck that people can take aim at and just sort of shoot out of the sky, and that's why I didn't play it tonight.
Yeah, it might be a little riskier with a 4-player metagame compared to a wider field.
Exactly. And was workshops a consideration when you were deciding to shove a bunch of destroy 3 target artifacts and shattering sprees and
Uh,
everything
eh,
short of pulverized really in your deck?
eh, I wanted to be prepared. That's for sure. I thought it was definitely a possibility there might be a shop stack tonight. So it's probably a good choice not to play shops. Really, I think you kind of went to the next level there.
Well, Xerox is always a good choice. Now, all right, it looks like the players are ready, so why don't we go and take a look?
All right. So what do we have for opening hands?
Ooh,
Hmm.
wow,
Oh, Matt's hand. No,
I like
no
it.
lands.
Uh,
He does have the ancestral though,
and he has a force to back it up. I'm snap keeping if I'm Matt. And
and for Steve, yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
what's exciting? What he can't
yeah,
do is find a force of will off that preordain.
yeah. That would be. Hmm. Well, you need force and a blue card, right?
Exactly. That's why he doesn't have a blue card to pitch to it. So,
So it
um,
looks like Matt's plan is pretty safe here for the most part.
yeah. All right. So there, Steve found a red, but Red Blast is going to get hit with a force of will. Now, Matt could still miss off the ancestral. If he doesn't find any land, it's not going to look so great for him.
Yes, he definitely needs to hit some mana here. So here comes the Pyroblast.
Yep.
Matt
And
pretty much has to force
oh
back.
yeah, I can't imagine him not. And he can pitch the gush well enough because he's 2 islands away from casting it. Oh,
And
okay. So
there's a
wow,
Grizzlebrand that you were mentioning. Sometimes ends up in your hand awkwardly.
exactly. And Steve gets to cast a cantrip. So he's digging through his deck to find whatever he needs. He's also essentially, when you go to the coffee shop and you give them a little punch card, and after 10 you get a free drink? You're sort of doing that with a treasure cruise. Like, after you cast enough cantrips, you just pay a blue and draw 3 cards.
And then you do it again with Jace.
Right? Jace lets you refire all the goods. Jace is really good in these decks. For one thing, he's actually a clock, he's a threat, and he filters out your hand. Like, maybe Steve doesn't really need that. Swords to Plowshares. Oh, now this is an interesting scenario for Matt. I bet he'd really love to have a Dak Faden, but he doesn't really have that option in his life right now. So Night's Whisper is going to let him dig a little deeper. He's going for the Time Walk, and I can understand that. I probably would have just gone for the Night's Whisper there because if you find a land, you can actually use it.
Ooh, boy. So he hits a land, but not a land that helps him cast Stack Faden, at least immediately.
Right. But he does get to Night's Whisper with Flusterstorm backup, and that's not nothing.
Yeah, he's doing. I mean, he's Matt's digging through his deck almost as well as Steve at this point.
So in some ways, Dak Faden's actually better for Matt than it is for Steve because Matt has more bricks to throw into the yard.
That is true. I'm think he's going to be pretty fine dumping some of those cards.
That Volcanic Island can do some nice things for him. And Steve draws another mana source. Now, it's worth noting that Steve and I have slightly different builds. His is a little sort of further up on the mana curve than mine. I'm only playing the 3 on-color Moxes.
Ah, okay. Oh, more lands.
Now, Steve has drawn a basic mountain, so of course that naturally brings up the question, how did you decide on which mountains to play?
I just missed and matched. One of my theories when I play Blood Moon lock decks, I like to try to play all different Blood Moon arts, all different ensnaring bridge arts. If you're gonna, just jank people out of the game, you might as well go all the way. Is my thinking there.
I can't argue with that logic. Now, do you do that in real life too?
Uh, I do. Yep. Try to get all the different versions as much as possible. Yeah.
I'm on Mono Arabian Mountains for my Blood Moon build.
Ooh. Yeah, those are nice. So, with this Jace here, Rich, how much of an actual win condition, in the sense that you ultimate it and kill your opponent by milling them out, does that happen very often, or is the win condition part flashing back your ancestrals and time walks most often?
I don't think it happens more than 20% of the time, but it does mean that it's a clock. So I think it's oh, that was a really good draw for Steve. Wow. It doesn't usually come up, but it does come up sometimes. I think it's a win condition about as often as Snapcaster Mage is a win condition, which is to
Okay.
say, not infrequently, but not all that often either.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think he has to slam down Dak Faden here. It's just going to set him up for so many nice things in life. He can
Yeah.
he can play it. He can steal the Mox, and then, well, I don't know if he needs to steal the Mox actually.
Yeah. He's Snap stole the Mox there, so I don't know if that bothers Steve a whole lot, considering how much mana he's drawn this game.
Right, right. Well, Matt probably doesn't know how flooded Steve is.
Yeah, that is a good point. He doesn't get to see the hands there, and I mean, it's kind of free. He has his deck around to start looting next turn, so it's not a huge cost to steal the Mox there.
Ooh, all right. Now, because Matt got to untap with Dak Faden, this is looking really good for him. If he draws a Black Lotus, he can play a Gristlebrand, can't he?
He- we might be getting close to the hardcast Grizzlebrand part of the game here, yeah.
Always a nice phase of the game.
But it looks like Matt might just be thinking about discarding it.
Well, he has a couple options here. I mean, he could play Jace, which is really good. He could also, and I think it would just be Yawgmoth's willing to time walk at this point, so it's probably not worthwhile. Usually, Oath decks are at their very best when they're using their time walks to make Oath of Druids trigger.
Yeah, and Matt hasn't found an oath yet. He's gotten quite a few cards into his library and just hasn't been able to find one. But that dig through time might help with that if that's his plan.
This is interesting. Um, I like playing Jace here, but I probably would have played Jace with a fetch land open, but it looks like Matt is pretty aggressively going after Steve's mana base.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, sort of awkwardly, somehow Steve went from flooding out to actually being kind of tight on mana now.
Yeah, yeah. And only one blue, so Steve can't get a dig through time off that mystical tutor.
Yeah, and the time walk's gone, so I'm not sure. Ancestral's still around somewhere, right?
He can ancestral and then snap back the time walk. Oh man, there's Oath.
Ooh. And he has the Forbidden Orchard, so he's just gonna discard the oath, all right?
Well, he's putting it on top of his library.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking that was a Dak Vaden activation. You're right. That was a Jace activation.
So something that makes Oath even more dangerous is the fact that Matt has dig through time, which deterministically stops him from accidentally decking himself. It's possible that if he had the only creature left at the bottom of his library, he could run out of cards, but dig through time lets you pad that nicely.
Yeah, put some cards to the bottom. So ooh, hmm. Well,
Well,
there is a force of will now.
there is, but just because there's a force of will doesn't mean there's a way for Steve to claw back into this.
Yeah, I mean, even if he can stop the oath, he's still getting buried under these two planeswalkers.
And
One
thus ends the
planeswalker.
short reign of deck of Jace the Mind Sculptor. Um,
So there's the oath.
yeah. So Matt can. Oh, he found a force, and that's pretty huge right there.
So now the oath is going to resolve here.
Yeah, this is probably going to end it. Yeah, this is really good for Matt. He's going to be able to just windmill slam this oath. He can use, and he has to be conscious that Steve has. Oh, does Steve have a Mindbreak trap in his deck?
Ooh, He might have one. I should check the deck list.
That's
I believe that he. Um, maybe he does not in his main deck.
okay. Okay. So Steve does not deign to force of will.
So now, with the Grizzlebrand gone, what does Matt have left with this oath? Inferno Titan, and is that the only other target in his deck? Oh, Matt has a Mindbreak Trap in his main deck.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like it just might be the Inferno Titan, and only the Inferno Titan.
I mean, that's still pretty good.
It is, but I think this opens up a way for, well, let's see. Steve could back him up with force, but then the Inferno Titan would arrive and burninate the monk.
Yeah. He does have the Swords to Plowshares, which is potentially an answer to an Inferno Titan.
I'm excited to see where this dig through time takes Matt. Could be somewhere exciting. Demonic Tutor.
Okay. I mean, Demonic Tutor's pretty exciting.
It is. Oh, actually, it's really exciting because it means that he can time walk, right? He can get a Lotus, Yawgmoth's Will, and replay the Lotus, and then cast Time Walk.
Yes. So he's going to be able to set up this oath pretty nicely here.
Now, the only way this goes horribly awry is if he accidentally, say, casts a cantrip and draws the Inferno Titan.
Yes, that would be bad. He already did draw the Grizzlebrand, so it does happen.
Right. I mean, he's playing a pretty greedy build, right? With only the 2 monsters in it.
Yeah, he is being a little greedy. What is the normal number, would you say, Rich, for a oath build?
Either 3 monsters, yeah, usually either 3 monsters or 2 monsters and something like a Gaia's Blessing or something like that.
To get him back if you need to, yeah.
Right. So it's a bit of a greedy deck, but once someone's getting to the point of shoving Chrome Moxen in his deck, it's probably a great build.
Yeah, he definitely has a very unique build of both. I appreciate the innovation there. So there's a Black Lotus heading for the Time Walk, as you mentioned.
So does he have? He's going to cast the good. Okay, he does not draw the Inferno Titan, but remember, because he shuffled after the dig through time, it's possible that the bottom card of his library is Inferno Titan.
Yeah. No. Here's the moment of truth. Okay.
11 cards left. That should be plenty for the Titan to, do the things that Titans like to do, which is mostly igniting things. And he drew a counter. That's huge right there.
There's the Mindbreak Trap. So that does give... Ooh, and a Treasure Cruise as well.
All right. This looks very bad for Mr. Menendian.
Yeah. Gonna be tough to get out of here.
It's possible that Steve's best hope at this point is hoping that Matt misclicks and accidentally oaths again.
It might be to that point. He can't even cast his white cards without drawing mana, and if he draws mana, it doesn't actually help him that much with Matt's hand. So
Matt has 2 counters online. So even if Steve draws, say, a Lotus to cast both the Mentor and the Swords, Matt can stop them from happening.
And then Inferno Titan's going to close out this game in two turns, most likely.
Yeah, because Inferno Titan has that trigger, he can actually light the otherwise hapless blocker, and then crash in with Fire Breathing, and then Matt can hand Steve another exciting token so that Steve still can't oath.
Yep.
Because Matt doesn't know that Steve has the Mentor in his hand. So what Matt doesn't want Steve to do is to oath himself into that Mentor.
And then a chain of cantrips or something would be a way to maybe dig out of this.
Exactly. I don't think Matt can afford to deck anymore.
Yes, he's getting a little bit light library-wise. Is that 4 cards left in his
That is
library?
4 cards, which is almost certainly going to be enough unless he doesn't realize he only has 4 cards left. So remember that he can actually fire breathe the Titan. It looks like he does not because he wants to leave his counter magic open, but ooh, interesting. So this is where is he gonna let Steve oath?
Hmm. Okay.
It looks like
Here
he is
comes the
not
token.
waiting to let Steve oath.
Yeah, that makes sense because Inferno Titan, like last turn, can get through that token anyway for lethal.
I don't
And
like I don't like doing that on Steve's upkeep because if Steve removed the token in response,
then
then
he
Steve
would
could
get the
still
oath
oath.
trigger.
But
That's a good point.
because it's an intervening if clause, if he had made that on his own end step, it would not have gone on the stack at all. All right, Steve consults his Google Docs to find out how to sideboard.
Do you do that, Rich? Do you have your Google Doc sideboard plan for these matchups?
No, I don't.
No.
I usually know how I'm going to sideboard, but I usually just sort of remember it.
Yeah, I go more that direction too. So sideboard wise, how much does it shift this matchup? Do you think is anyone benefiting significantly more from sideboarding here, or
I
not
think Steve.
too much?
So looking at what Matt gets, he gets Painful Truths, which is a really strong magic card, but that's about all. On the other hand, Steve gets 2 Fragmentized, 2 Pyroblast, and a Pithing Needle if he's into that sort of thing. So I think this benefits Steve more.
Yeah, it does. It does seem like Steve gets some nice answers from his board.
And Steve can get rid of a lot of the bricks in his deck. He probably wasn't happy about having that Swords to Plowshares running around in his hand, and it's probably not going to be there anymore. Most of the time, if an Inferno Titan has landed, he's probably lost anyway, so it's not really worth keeping in.
So looks like looks like Matt's trimming a Dak Faden. He has the. Does he have the full 4 in his main deck?
Wow, he's
It's a
cutting a
lot of
Dak Faden.
Daks.
I'm not sure I love cutting Dak Faden in this matchup. He does have the max 4, but I'm not sure I like cutting. I'm not sure I like cutting Dak here. Dak is just such a good magic card. And it looks like Steve is cutting Mystical Tutor. I'm not even running Mystical Tutor. Um, he run in the Pithing Needle, which makes sense. He left in the Biforce, though.
All right, so here we go to game number 2. Ugh. So Matt's hand, similar to his last one, but with the wrong color Moxen and no Ancestral.
Right. Like his left hand, minus the relevant card. So he mulliganed. That hand's not very exciting. And Steve's hand is surprisingly exciting because he has a turn 2 Dak Faden, and he also can fire 2 Fragmentizes next turn in case Matt has the all-powerful Mox Orchard Oath hand.
Yeah, he has, oh boy, more lands for Matt over there. Matt's got one of the slowest vintage hands I've seen in a while.
Yeah, I mean, that's a Legacy hand, right? All those
Yeah.
cards are legal in Legacy.
That's actually a modern hand, I think. Pretty close, minus the
If
original
you
dual
had,
lands there.
yeah, if you just had the Shock lands instead, which you might as well with those arts, that's a modern legal hand.
So here comes Dak, and I guess one of the upsides of playing a whole bunch of Daks is you can always discard additional copies to the first one. So
Exactly. I almost never feel like I'm choking on Dax because if you can resolve one, yeah, and get rid of the others. So
interesting. So Steve is really valuing these
oh
fragmentizes,
yeah,
which gives him a lot of protection.
it does.
Although
Wow, he left in swords. Okay.
left, yep,
Well,
swords and pyroclasm across the table.
I guess Steve can feel good about this now because he can just discard it.
Yeah, that it is a little strange to leave it in against those 2 creatures, but it worked out.
It did. What can I say? It did.
Ooh. Well,
Well,
so What is Matt Demonic Tutor for? Or assuming he does.
Ancestral.
And then do we see a Force of Will here? Or a Force on the Ancestral?
I think we do. The other thing I like about doing a card that he could play this turn, he can also go for a Lotus. Lotus dances around Mental Misstep, and Matt has a backup copy of Jace next turn.
That makes sense. So you can just Jace, untap Jace if you get countered on the first one.
So I guess it comes down to, does Matt think that Steve left in Mental Misstep? I cut 3 missteps against Matt because he has almost no targets.
Yeah, I assume you got to cut most of your missteps. Matt kind of intentionally built to blanket. Whew. All
so
right.
that's really interesting. Matt takes a defensive line against Steve, which is a little unexpected to me because usually the Oath player has to throw threat after threat to overwhelm the Xerox player. If the Oath player is 1-for-1, then he's probably not going to win.
And he's going to get pretty punished by the second Jace, or second Dak, rather.
Right. I think either Ancestral or, oh man, that's a really, really good set of cards. I really think he had to take either Ancestral or Lotus there. I probably would have taken the Ancestral if you expected Steve to be cutting missteps and Lotus otherwise.
Yeah, it seems like Steve is pretty far ahead at this point with those forces hanging out for the Jaces.
Steve is like swimming in card advantage. It's like I'm just imagining Scrooge McDuck just sort of swimming everywhere, like Moxes in the vault there.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what the deck does, I guess. You draw a lot of cards.
Now, this is actually probably going to work out badly for Matt because Steve's going to force, Matt's probably going to force back, and then it's going to look really clever for Steve to force again.
And then untap in Ancestral.
Yeah.
And then Dak Faden. Just keep drawing those cards. Matt's hand's a little awkward on this board. Abrade and Pyroclasm.
It is. I mean, Abrade is not going to do what he needs it to do here.
Well, if there's good news for Matt, it's that I guess the Ancestral was not great, although Steve gets to see a ton more cards still.
Well, we have a saying here, cards are cards, and that's never more true than when Dak Faden's been on the scene. Oh, wow. Steve can actually start librarying soon.
Yeah, he is pretty close.
He can also
time walk. Whew.
Yeah, this game's pretty much over here.
The upside of drawing so many cards is eventually you draw your good ones.
Now, I think this all came down really to that demonic tutor that Matt cast.
Yeah, it was a intro. That wasn't even a Pyroblast. Wasn't even an option that we had considered when we were talking over the line. So that was an interesting choice there for sure.
Well, I think it really does come down to sort of role assessment, threat assessment, and I think Matt has to take the role of being the aggressor.
Yeah, I can't imagine he's just going to outdraw Steve in this matchup too often.
No, not without getting Gristlebrand on the table.
So Steve, all right, gives up on the library, which it's not like he needs more cards, and he wants to empty his hand to Time Walk here, perhaps.
Yeah, I think the tough question was, do you Time Walk first, or do you play Jace first?
All right, there's a dig through time. The cards, they just keep flowing.
Wow.
So is there any realistic way for Matt to get back in the game at this point, or are we kind of past that point?
I think we're well past the expiration date on the Oath deck here. Usually Oath decks, they act like the combo decks in this matchup. They either assemble a contraption early and win off of it, or they sort of get ground into the dust. And now we're seeing Steve grinding out Matt. So I don't think there's any configuration of cards that Matt could possibly draw that would get him out of this.
So as far as actually winning the game, Steve has basically one Monastery Mentor. I mean, discounting Planeswalker Ultimates, but that's the only thing that actually deals damage in his deck, right?
Yeah, but Steve hates winning the game. This is the part that Steve likes, right? He's drawing lots of cards. He'll draw. This is Steve's favorite part of Magic, I think.
And I mean, you'll find that one Monastery Mentor eventually, and it'll get the job done.
Right, exactly. I'm not entirely sure about Pyroclasm, because, I understand Matt bringing in Pyroclasm against me, because I have 3 young Pyromancers, but if Monastery Mentor gets Pyroclasm, something's gone horribly awry.
Yeah, it seems pretty unlikely that Steve will ever just run it out I mean, I guess unless he's desperate and about to die, but in general, he's not going to just run it out there into Pyroclasm, I wouldn't think.
Right, exactly. He'll wait until it's the right time. So let's see if they change how they're sideboarding.
So I saw Matt brought back in the Mindbreak Trap and went down the Tormod script. Is Mindbreak Trap a card that its value varies a lot based on play draw, do you think?
Well, one thing that Brian Kelly pointed out that I thought was really clever is that an opponent with 8 cards is more likely to hit the 3 spell threshold on turn 1 than an opponent with 7 cards.
That's a really good point that I never really considered.
Now, if that Pyroclasm had been a Sorcerer Spyglass, that game would have been a lot better for Matt.
Yeah. Is there any thought to bringing that in from Matt's side, or apparently not?
It just looks like Matt doesn't have enough cards. I mean, it looks like he just does not have enough cards to swap out all of the bricks for non-bricks.
Yeah, 2 Pyroclasm seems not that ideal.
Yeah, I would like Spyglass more, but I'm not particularly enamored of either of them in this matchup.
Well, here we go to game 3, and we have Matt on the play.
All right, let's see the opening hand, because this will decide a lot. Matt has a library.
He does.
I would just keep the library.
Yeah, the rest of his hand is
library go and hope to bury my opponent in poor CGI card advantage.
The rest of his hand is, I mean, not super exciting.
No,
I mean, I guess it's good if he hits his mana. I guess he needs to hit multiple colors of mana.
But if you're going to go through all the trouble of putting a colorless land in your 4-color deck, you might as well use it when you're supposed to, right?
Oh, that's true. So there's a semi-sad Mox Pearl. The nice off-color Mox.
That is very sad, yeah. If you're Steve... Oh, okay. So Steve can Fragmentize and also play Jace.
Ooh, he did not play a White Source, so we're not going to see Fragmentize this turn. Interesting.
Okay, so he's choosing to leave up Reb.
I guess he leaves up Pyroblast. Has the Force of Will, so he has a lot of protection off Matt. Okay. Well,
see what Matt can do. So he draws on upkeep.
There's
There's an Orchard, which is huge.
So that's kind of step 1 of the combo, as well as some pretty good mana fixing here. This lets him fire off pretty much anything in his hand.
Ooh, so it's either Time Walk or Reb. I think I like Time Walk here.
Yeah, Time Walk gets even better when you have a library going, so.
Library is kind of like a Planeswalker. I mean, except it's uncounterable.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. We've definitely seen some Planeswalkers that do almost exactly that. So, do you think a Pyroblast is in order if we do see the Time Walk?
Yeah, I think Steve definitely snaps Time Walk there. I mean, Time Walk's usually good, but a Time Walk with a bonus card glued onto it is even better.
So how painful is giving your opponent these 1/1s. Is that a concern at all for Matt to be providing attackers?
Well, you happen to have Night's Whisper and somehow Painful Truths in your hand.
I mean, maybe that's why he left in the pyroclasms. He's got to clean up the spirit tokens that he's donating.
I like that. He's trying to solve the problem that his deck is creating.
All right.
Wow, that's impressive. Smenin is forcing the Red Blast. Wow. All right.
Really wants that Jace.
That's really aggressive. So Steve is not interested in losing Jace.
He's going to need one more turn by the looks to actually flip it. He gets a peek at the hand. Ooh. Well, that's a deck.
Hey, deck's a card.
And he can resolve it if he wants to, or no, he can't. He doesn't have double red for his Pyroblast, so
Right.
He knows about the force.
If he plays it, he's off force. Now,
I guess that puts Matt off of library for the time being.
Looks like Matt is not remotely interested in the things that Mr. Faden has to offer today.
And here comes the fragment. Now that you know that Matt's kind of struggling on mana, makes a lot of sense too.
He just opened up Oath of Druids as an unbelievably good draw for Matt.
And Matt does have... you called it. You called it. That is...
Wow. Wow. All right. This is looking... Yeah. Wow. This is huge. Oh, okay. So I guess he's going to be able to flip over his Jace and then refire the
Fragmentize.
Yeah.
So the game continues. We don't get an Oath activation yet.
This game remains interesting.
It's kind of funny that Matt's the one with all the card draw this game. It's kind of the opposite of what we've seen in the last two games so far.
Library of Alexandria is quite a Magic card, isn't it?
Yes, it is. They don't print them like that anymore.
No, they don't. They've decided that tapping to draw a card, the card is in your opening hand, is maybe a little better than they might prefer.
It might be a little too good. Well,
we will not see this in Modern Horizons, I don't think.
Yeah, seems unlikely. Well, Steve has the 7-turn clock with the spirits getting in there.
They could have some homage card to it. Maybe they'll have like Fragments of Alexandria, and it only works if you have 8 cards.
Ooh.
When speaking of fragments, I guess this is where Matt can just shove an Oath, and then next turn also shove an Oath.
Yeah. And well, we'll see what the draws are. There is a deck to go digging, I guess, but only one Fragmentize at the moment.
There is. I like just playing Oath here.
So we have an Oath down.
Mm-hmm.
That one can be dealt with the Fragmentize flashback.
Right.
But can Steve find an answer to the one that's coming next turn?
That's really interesting. This has turned into quite a game. So, Fragmentize looking really good.
So do you think that the Fragmentize on the Mox, was that a too greedy of a line? Or is that just kind of hindsight bias with how this game is played out with the 2 Oaths being drawn?
I guess Steve knew Matt's hand. So it's less greedy than it would have been. It would definitely be too greedy if Steve didn't know Matt's hand. Maybe the Gataxian probe sort of absolves Steve of too much avarice.
That's true, because at the time there were no Oaths floating around, so that's a good point. So now, so we can Oath Time Walk. Mm-hmm. Then Steve can counter the Time Walk and get a couple of looks for a fragmentize, I guess, is basically what he needs to find is another copy to. Wow, that is oath number 3.
Oh man! All right, so now this is how Matchstack usually wins the games it wins, by just threat, 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 and hoping that Steve runs out of answers. So this will be an exciting turn. Steve can flashback a cantrip with one Jace, flip over another Jace, Dak Faden. Steve can do a lot of looking here.
He can see a lot of cards, although the downside is I think he only has a pretty limited number of answers at this point.
Does he only have the 2 fragmentizes?
It looks like there are, let me see, 2 in the main deck. And then 2 more in the sideboard. So I'm assuming we're up to 4 now. And there's a fragmentize.
There he is. And then he has Mystical Tutor for... All right, so Steve is now in good shape. He can fragmentize and then refire the fragmentize on the next oath from Matt. And he can leave up Red Blast to stop the play of Oath into Time Walk.
Yeah, he passed the oath test by the looks, and those spirits are slowly eating away at Matt's life total.
Right?
That is oath number 4 and a force off the top with the library. Oh.
Wow.
Oh, boy, Matt has drawn a lot of oaths in the last 3 turns.
The game's getting, and continuing to be exciting. So
yeah, this has been a great game.
All right, but Steve is going to be able to use Mystical Tutor to find something. Let's see what he finds.
Goes with Time Walk by the looks.
Time Walk's big. So he can actually dance the Time Walks to attack, attack, attack. He's getting surprisingly close to being lethal.
These spirits, they are getting close. Down to 7. And he still always has the Fragmentize in the graveyard if he does need to flash it back.
This is interesting. Sperling doesn't really have the mental missteps that a lot of blue decks have. Oh, this would be a great time for a Force of Will, wouldn't it?
Yeah, wow. And a dig through time.
I'm a little surprised that Steve opened himself up to this. Because Force of Will here... Oh, no, sorry. He cast 1 and then cast another, right?
Yeah, I think he cast 2 in the same turn, actually, yeah. So I think he's safe.
Okay.
Steals a Mox.
Mm-hmm.
Down to 5. And now this is extra turn number 2, I think.
Mm-hmm. And 1 more in the vault. The Time Vault.
Oh, and another Fragmentize. And Steve might be getting there with these spirit tokens. It's looking like it might be happening.
It looks like it is.
Matt desperately needs one of his pyroclasms.
So with a whole nother turn coming his way, he can... I'm pretty sure that this dig through time will end the game.
And oddly, the force is kind of off the table at this point because of the 1 damage.
Yeah, which is why it kind of really made sense for Matt to force that second Time Walk, because if he didn't, it's going to shut him off anyway, right?
Yeah, it does seem like that might have been the way to go there, because now it looks like he might just die with the force in hand, which is not ideal.
No, it's never ideal to die. But even worse to have a Force of Will that it's basically giving him a life point. He could have built his own Scars of the Veteran with it.
Oh. I think we might have lost track of the number of
did we
extra
miscount the
turns.
time walk count?
I think we might have miscounted on the time walks because we're back to Matt here. So I think that was the last of the extra turns.
Okay. Sorry about that. I got confused. In that case, everything changes. Wow. I think it looks like Matt's about to pull this out. Wow.
Forces to 2. And now he gets to oath into something and win?
Yeah, he can oath here. And if there's no way for Steve to stop this oath. Wow. All right. No.
Yeah.
I got confused about how many turns were floating in the time vault.
Yeah, there was a lot of extra
turns. Going to be a lethal oath.
So here's the oath activation. Either
it could be a lethal oath.
So it should be Grizzlebrand or Inferno Titan, I believe, are still the only 2 options. I don't think he brought in the Blazing Archon.
Brought in Archon.
And here's a line you were mentioning last game. Well, I mean, to some extent, using the dig through time to manipulate things with the oath on the stack.
Right. Exactly. That guarantees that he doesn't get decked. I like that. You don't want to go through all this only to have your creatures be in the bottom 4 cards of your library.
Yeah, and it seems like there's not much of a way for Matt to lose other than getting very unlucky with the oath. So if you can avoid the chance of getting unlucky, you might as well.
Exactly. Even if Steve finds the swords to stop Grizzlebrand before it draws Matt cards, Matt can just find Inferno Titan. He gets a Ruby and a Demonic Tutor.
So
that must not have been a very exciting oath. There's Inferno Titan with 28 cards safely in Matt's library.
So now the spirits can go away. Or, I guess, Dak? Maybe you kill, a spirit in Dak?
I kind of like getting rid of Dak here. It's a lot of value, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of looks to find a swords or something.
Right, and I don't think there's a swords in Steve's graveyard.
I don't believe so. I think all those white cards are fragmentizes.
Now, he has to hit 1 token or else he gets killed by it.
Yeah, so you can do 2 to Dak and 1 to a spirit and survive.
Yeah, I like that. But
okay.
If he wants to cast Demonic Tutor, he has to kill 2 spirits.
So he just gets rid of all the spirits.
Okay. Ooh, now if he didn't already have Time Walk in the graveyard, he could have cast Time Walk.
So what do you tutor for here?
Red Blast shuts off Jace, which cuts off a lot of the options that Steve would otherwise have.
So it looks like you're going to try to set up for maybe the win next turn cycle if nothing goes wrong. Although this dig for time could... There's no lightning bolts floating around in this list, is there? In the Jeskai mentor list?
I don't think Steve is opting to play bolts. He's playing 2 swords over them, I think.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't look like... There is... Well, it's probably not in this matchup, but Subterranean Tremors, I guess, deals damage out of the sideboard.
Not to players. It's it's non-flying creatures.
Oh, it's not a true earthquake.
It is not a true earthquake. No, it's a what was it? Tropical Storm was the version of Hurricane that doesn't hit players, but hits blue and white, I guess, or just blue creatures for an extra 1. So Matt does not have to let Steve oath here. Matt can just donate a creature.
So, interestingly, there's a swords now, so...
That's awkward.
The swords can take care of the Titan.
Yeah.
I guess in theory it could take care of the token and get an oath activation, but that seems a little worse.
Wow, this game continues to be a great game. I'm really glad that this game's happening in the Vintage Super League.
Yeah, this has been just super great vintage here.
But Matt really needs to donate that Mons Goblin Raiders.
Yeah, I don't. So it's either a Jace or a Mentor that Steve would get. I guess Jace isn't the end of the world, but
Mentor kind of is.
Mentor, yes, that would probably literally be the end of Matt's world in this game. Mental misstep. So there are some missteps still in the deck. We were wondering about that earlier.
I went down to one misstep against Matt because it's just really bad against him. Turns out none of these cards are going to be able to stop Yawgmoth from, doing the kind of things that Yawgmoth likes to do.
Yeah. Matt can still have So you can't really treasure cruise. You have to kill the Titan, I assume.
You do. Now, Steve could do it in Matt's upkeep so that Matt can't oath. But wow.
Okay. So we're gonna treasure cruise and trust that we hit mana?
That's a really greedy play. Wow, I guess Steve decided that might be too greedy even for him.
Passing up the opportunity to draw cards. What is happening?
No, just to kill some creature.
So this Pithing Needle is basically for the Planeswalkers. So that's a good answer to this Jace potentially.
I don't think this Jace will be here or there. I think it's unlikely the Jace will matter. I'm looking at Matt's graveyard, and yeah, if Matt gets another turn, I think this is just over.
You think the Yawgmoth's Will is going to take care of it then?
He has Lotus, he has a Mox, he has a Time Walk. So
yeah, I guess he'll be able to oath for the Grizzlebrand. And his deck should be stacked in a way where he's safe from.
Are those Pokemon? It looks like Matt's hand has been replaced by a Pokemon.
That does look like
Pokemon. I think it's indicative of Matt falling asleep in response to Steve's being Steve.
Oh, that might be.
Wow. So Steve takes the greediest line anyone has ever taken ever and somehow draws a Tundra. Wow.
Oh boy.
Man, if Matt watches this on the replay, he's not going to be thrilled.
Oh, that was good. All right.
Steve's down to 13 minutes. Do you think that the timeout's a realistic possibility here for Matt as a way to win?
I mean, I think Matt, like you said with this Yawg probably will end things before that, but it's getting close to that point.
So, while Smedden does have Force, he doesn't have a blue card to go with it.
That makes Force a little bit worse.
And Matt's back up to... So, it's interesting that he did it there. Matt can summon Griselbrand now.
And then Time Walk, and then...
Oh, man, wow.
Oh, and he still has 24 cards left in his library, so he can actually even activate Griselbrand.
Yeah, he can. I'm not sure he needs to, but he can. So I don't understand how Matt could possibly do anything other than win the game. All right, so Yawgmoth's Will resolved. So now all the good and exciting things are going to happen. We have Wrong Art Power returning to the battlefield. We're going to get to see Wrong Art Time Walk. Oh. Pithing Needle is stopping the demon.
Oh. That is a good point. Although it can still attack.
It turns out, yeah, a 7/7 flying lifelink. Now, Steve might be able to have built his own solution. He can flash back that Swords to Plowshares. And...
Ooh. Not anymore, though.
Maybe he can't. So Matt can Time Walk Demonic Tutor.
So,
I still think that Lord of the Pit with Lifelink is going to be able to put this away for Matt.
is there any? Yeah, I wonder if Matt has any ways of getting rid of the needle that he could demonic tutor for. I'm not 100% sure what's in his deck at this point.
He already flashback. Oh, he can flashback dig through time.
That's also pretty reasonable.
He's already flashback Time Walk, right?
I believe Time Walk has already been flashback. Yeah, that's a pretty good Yawgmoth's Will.
Yeah, they often are. This has been a spectacular game.
So what's Matt looking for to just... Okay, he gets 2 defensive cards.
I don't dislike it.
So pretty much just take a couple turns of attacking with Grizzlebrand, I guess, seems to be the plan.
Yeah, I think so. And here's Demonic Tutor in case there was anything else in Matt's deck that he was particularly keen on having.
And okay, another plus. All right, so just all the counter spells, 3 counters in hand, an extra turn. So do you just go face, or do you consider killing Dak? Is there any argument to cutting off that looting effect, or do you just try to end the game?
I actually don't mind killing Dak here because it's a 4-turn clock instead of a 3-turn clock, but Dak is effectively tripling Steve's draw capacity. So I actually like killing Dak and then playing Jace and then plussing.
That seems like a good line. There goes the Dak, as you suggested, and Matt also drew a Mind Break trap, so he is just overloaded with counter spells. It's going to be very difficult for Steve to get rid of this Grizzlebrand.
Yeah. Great game this has been.
Yeah, what a game. It looks like Matt's probably going to pull it out here in the end.
Almost certainly. He's gone from 2 life to 15 life. Next turn, well, he'll probably gain 7 more.
Yeah, the Spirit's not looking as threatening anymore.
No. It used to be half of Matt's life total, and now it's, a lot less than that.
Yeah. Well, the graveyard's pretty empty for that treasure cruise, but...
It is.
I guess Matt has the mana. He could just cast it if he felt like it.
Painful Truths is now not unthinkable.
Yeah, at 15 life, Painful Truths doesn't seem that painful.
Right. Now Matt's at 22. The only reason he doesn't want Painful Truths is that he'd have a painful discard step.
So from Steve's side, is there anything he's looking for or hoping for? Is he just kind of playing it out at this point?
It's deterministic at this point. Matt has resummoned his sleeping Pokemon. That's great.
Well, that was an amazing match. That was just a great game all around.
That was really incredibly fun, man.
Yeah.
I think both players played really well. Both players fought really hard in that, and Matt was just able to sneak through this little window that Steve left open for him.
It didn't hurt that he drew Ose 4 turns in a row or something at one point.
Well, yes, that's true. But that feels like wins, right? It's just slamming thread after thread. And if you ever gave Steve just a second to breathe, then Steve would be able to sort of get so far ahead in card advantage that he wouldn't really be able to relinquish that. But Matt was able to keep the pressure on, and that's what he needed to do.
Yeah, that was Steve spent a lot of time digging for an answer just to stay alive, and Matt was able to take advantage. Great game all around.
Man, that was really fun. That was really fun. I'm glad everyone out there got to see that.
Yeah. Hopefully everyone enjoyed it, and now hopefully next round I will make some people not have fun and play some turn 1 Blood Moons.
Wait, you're going to play against me. Can't you wait till turn 3? It is a 3-drop, right?
Technically, it's a 3-drop, but I'm hoping for turn 1. We'll see.
All right.
All right.
I'll look forward to the match. Good luck.
Good luck, and we're gonna cut to a commercial, and we'll be right back.